let's talk about one comp that I believe people will take a little bit more time to understand how to play, and actually I think it's truly broken right now, only if you understand how to play it. So let's talk about EDM and how to abuse it on the ladder at the beginning of set 10. By the way, for those who don't know me, I'm Felipe, I've been challenger multiple sets in a row, and I'm here to compete in set 10 with Las Vegas Open and other competition in Europe, so I'm trying hard the game and I'm making sure that whatever I say is always the most accurate as possible. With that being said, let's jump into the comp. So to talk about the comp, I will go into multiple phases in this video. First, I'm going to talk about the late game comp for those who are really eager to understand the comp and just want to try right away. And after, I'm going into deeper explanations about different things about this comp for the guys who want to learn better and master this comp, and then after have a clear advantage over anyone else on TFT. I'm also using Tacter, so Tacter is a website you can find free guides like the one I wrote right now in this video, and you will be able to have access to this website with the link in the description. Tacter is also the sponsor of my video, I don't remember if I say it. But anyway, everything is free for you, it's easier for me to show you the comps and it's also easier for you to use, so everyone is winning, that's why I wanted to be transparent with you. So basically this comp, as you might have understood with the name, you use EDM and Lux, basically, and you also use another synergy of Lux, which is Dazzler, basically. So you want to have Lux 3, obviously, because she's going to be your main carry, and then after you want to make sure you have Zach 2 and Z2, because these two units are going to be extremely powerful once you have 2 stars and a little bit of stuff on them. This is a comp you want to reroll at level 8. It's really important, even though it's a 3 cost, you want to reroll this comp at level 8, because again, like I said, you want to look for Zach, you want to look for Zed, and why not Kiana and Ziggs instead of having another crowd diver like 2 costs or 3 costs or Dazzler, which are not that impactful. This is really important because you will understand when you play this comp that the most important part is not necessarily find Lux 3 at level 7, but rather is to be level 8 with Zach 2, Z2, Lux 2, and then Lux 3. So now let's talk about the synergies. So I'm keeping the EDM for the last because I feel EDM is one of the most difficult traits for those who start set 10. But let's talk about Dazzler. Dazzler is really important because it helps your Lux to deal much more damage, because whenever she deals damage to a unit with her ability, there will be some kind of bleed based on 60% of damage dealt because you have 4 Dazzlers. If you have 2 Dazzlers, it's only 20%, which is still not negligible, but the best is to have 4 Dazzlers. I will also talk about the highliners a little bit later, don't worry, everything is going to be in this video. So now I've talked about Dazzler, let's talk about EDM. So EDM, for those who don't really know, it's a very difficult trait to grasp at first, but once you understand it, you understand like it has almost infinite possibilities because you have so many ways to play it. So EDM is a synergy where everyone who is EDM will copy an ability of the sampled EDM every couple of seconds. So this depends based on the champion you sampled, and here we are sampling Lux. So if I remember correctly, it's every 8 seconds. Your Jax, your Zach, and your Zed, and even your Lux will use Lux abilities without using mana, without anything. So this is why it's actually really interesting, because when you have this comp, it means that you just don't have Lux, you have actually 4 Lux who can shoot laser beams, basically. Then once you understand that, you will ask questions about what are the ratio of damage, how do they aim, what's happening. So let me show you a little bit more. Let's say we have this scenario, and I add Jax as well. So every 8 seconds, because I'm sampling Lux, every 8 seconds, Jax, Zach, Zed, and Lux will copy Lux's ability. There's a few rules about that. First of all, they can't target the same unit. So basically, if Lux is targeting, let's put a random units, one here, one here, one here, and one here. So if Lux is targeting this Katarina, then Jax cannot target this Katarina and will most likely target Senna. Zed will most likely target Katarina here, and Zach will most likely target the Katarina in front, because anyway, they can't target the same unit. So you can't, for instance, I don't know, there was a trick like this where I put random range unit here and you block the Jax, and they can't both target the same Katarina, even though Katarina is the furthest unit from these 2 units. You cannot do this trick, unfortunately. We tried in PBE, but it doesn't really work. So that's one thing to know about Lux. The other thing you want to know about EDM is like, if Lux has some stuff like this, let's say very, very offensive stuff, let's put 2 Rabadon, so she has a lot of AP. What you need to understand is like, she might have tons of AP, so of course she will deal a lot of damage with her ability, but when Zed is going to sample Lux's ability, ability, he is not going to benefit from Lux's AP. He is going to use his own AP, and that's why actually if you put all the stuff on Lux and you have nothing on Z, he will not deal that much damage by copying Lux's ability. He will just deal like Lux with 100 AP basically. One of the reasons why you might have asked why I like to have Crown Guard on Zac. Crown Guard is not necessarily the best tank item, but it gives a lot of AP. And if you give Zac a lot of AP plus some tankiness, so Crown Guard, and you can have this with Warmog, so he will have tons of HP and a huge shield because the shield scales based off HP. That's really important. If you give this kind of stuff on Zac, if I'm correct, he will have overall 210 AP. That's quite a lot. When Zac is going to copy Lux's ability, he's going to copy Lux's ability with 210 AP, so he will deal a good amount of damage. And that's also why I like to put Titan on Z, but even though it's not necessarily the best, of course, if you want to play only Z carry, Titan is not necessarily the best. I like to have a Titan, Edge of Night, and BT because Z is a character that like to kill himself, so Edge of Night is quite nice, BT as well. He will also get a little bit of AP, around 50 AP, so he will still deal a little bit of damage when he's going to copy Lux's ability. So with that in mind, you understand that having EDM Lux is nice, but having other EDMs with being 2 stars plus having items on them is actually the real win condition of this comp. If you just stuff Lux and you have no item on Zac, no item on Z, or they're just 1 star and they get 1 shot at the beginning of the fight, you will have a very difficult game. And instead, on the opposite side, if you reroll a level 8, like I said earlier, and until you find Lux 3, you just play Lux 2 with these units on the board, you will still have a very strong mid-game, early, late game, let's say, because most people won't be able to have enough tankiness to take all the Lux's abilities with boosted damage thanks to items. Alright, now if you understood this, and I hope you did, we can talk about the highliners. So obviously, if you talk about the highliners, the one I'm thinking of and everyone is thinking of is Lux, because it helps you to have a strong mid game, it helps you to set a direction so you know you want to play this comp when you're transitioning around stage 4, and that's easy after to just go for it. But the other thing I really like with Lux's as a highliner is that her effect as a highliner, I think it's written here, gives her the ability to crit with her spell, meaning that you're not forced to use Geode Gauntlet so she can deal damage. Instead, since she can already crit, what you want to do is to stack more AP and also to have mana generation item. And this is why I love this stuff. You have Shojin, so she has more mana. You have Rabadon, so she has a lot of AP. And you have Guardbreaker that allows her to amplify her damage against any shield. But also it gives her more crit chance, so she has more chance to crit with her ability, which is also kind of nice to have. But to be honest, you have another way to play this comp. This is the simplest way to play this comp, is like you find Highliner Lux and you transition into this comp on the mid game. But you can also play this comp from a very different angle, and is when you have a Highliner Zac or a Highliner Z that you can only find at level 8 the soonest possible. You cannot find that at level 7. Meaning that you play your comp, you played your chosen, you play your game, and you didn't really know what to play. You managed to push level 8 with a good amount of health, a good amount of gold, and you start your roll to transition in order to stabilize your board for stage 4, stage 5. And here you hit Zac EDM as your first chosen, and then you consider this comp, because this comp can be played even if you don't have Lux chosen. And actually, in that case, you will play more around Z and Zac rather than Lux and Zac, basically. And obviously, if you don't have Lux as your highliner and you hit level 9 and you can find Ziggs highliner, just play Ziggs. It's amazing highliner you want to play and stuff him properly. So we are going to talk about the different game plans. Of course, first the easy game plan like I showed you with this. And then after I'm going to show you a little bit different game plans. And for that, I'm going to use the builder, because this is more about having agility and flexibility in your game plan, which is not necessarily given to anyone who didn't play in TFT, let's say set 4, for instance. But first of all, let's get with a simple and basic game plan. So if you play the early game, and that's what's going to happen in this set many times, when you play the early game, you can't really think of a direction you must take at stage 2. Most of the time during stage 2 and even stage 3, you will try to play the strongest board possible based on your items, based on your shops, and based on your highliner. And then when you roll down at level 8, you will start to set a direction based on the highliners you find, if they are meeting the criteria of having the good items items and the good augments to play this comp. But basically what I'm offering here is suggestions of great early game comps you can play and that doesn't commit you necessarily into Lux EDM, because with all the comps I'm showing here, you can play literally anything. 5 cost, 4 cost comps. It's just like maybe you can't play the reroll comps, because when you play reroll comps, you really need to have a specific early game. But this one, simple. You just want frontline plus backline. That's pretty much it. You have a Time-Kench Breezer or Headliner. Okay, play 4 Breezers. It's really easy to fit. And then after you play 3 Spellweaver, you can have Seraphine or Annie. That's it. You play early game. Another example is like same. You have a Time-Kench Headliner, but this time it's country. Okay, try to play around 3 country. Katarina is an AP carry, so put AP items on her. And maybe she will become a Lux later. But maybe she will become a Karthus. Or maybe you will play Katarina Reroll. You don't really know, and you should not at stage 2 fix a direction, because this game, this set is all about being flexible and have mental agility to see many different directions. And then another comp you can play as well is Kennen Headliners with Superfan, so he will get a free Protector's Vow. And then after you play an AP carry like Senna, or you can even have here, I showed here, and that's why I wanted to show, you can even have a AD start with BT and Titan on a Gnar, and this will lead you to play Zed rather than Lux. So Zed as your main carry and Lux as your side carry. But let's say you have a start with the AP, and then after at, let's say, stage 3, you found your Headliner Lux. You find there. So what you do, of course, is you remove your Headliners and you play Lux, because you instantly have a 3 cost 2-star in the mid game. That's really nice and huge of a power spike. You play Lux, you keep as much frontline as possible. You try to play around her synergies, you try to add a Jax, you try to add some maybe bruisers with Set plus Gragas, I don't know. You try to be level 8 with a lot of gold and a good amount of health, so you can reroll for Zac 2, Z2 and Lux 3 obviously. This game plan, however, is not possible if you are low health and low econ. If you are low health and low econ, you have no choice but to reroll Lux 3 at level 7, and you will try to save your game as much as you can, because this is not going to be the great spot to first place. If you want to have a great spot to first place, is like I said just before, try to reroll level 8. I'm really insisting on that because it's really important. If you reroll Lux at level 7, you have very low chance to win this game, because this is no longer the same as how it used to be in set 9, set 8, set 7, set 6, where it was common knowledge to reroll for 3 cost comps at level 7. Now it's no longer the case. So now let's talk about the other option you can play, especially if you start with AD, especially if you don't find Lux Headliners naturally. Instead, you find Zac or Zed. So let's say you had an early game where you play with AD, so something similar to this or something different. It doesn't really matter. Like I said, you just play your Headliners and then you switch it over the game. And then during the mid game, you somehow found a Headliner Urgot. So obviously you want to play this Headliner Urgot because you have AD item is an excellent mid game unit, so you play around it. And then after you try to build a comp around it. So this is, let's say, your level 7 and this is your mid game comp. So when you play this comp, you can, with this comp, reach level 8 and easily, as long as of course you didn't lose all your health before and you didn't lose all your gold before. But let's say like you play flexibly, you can reach level 8 quite easily with this comp, and then what you're going to do is to roll, because obviously this comp cannot help you to reach level 9. It's not strong enough for you to reach level 9 with this, so you have to stabilize your board at level 8. So when that happens and you find somehow a chosen Headliner Z, I will say chosen many times, don't worry, it's the same thing, you will find a Headliner Z. So the Headliner is going to be whatever, let's say Crowd Diver. So in that case, obviously you have to sell your Urgot or you can't buy it. You put the items on Z, and then after, this is your comp. This is not good enough. You need to roll in order to replace Time-Kench by Zac. You need to, little by little, you don't necessarily need to do everything in one turn because there's a lot of things to do in one turn. Just do it little by little to make sure like you don't instantly lose power with your team. And then after you remove Vec, you remove Samira, you try to find Lux, you try to find Jax, and then after once, only once, not before, you find Zac 2, you can remove Amumu 2 in order to put the items on Zac. So it was something like Crown Guard and Steadfast. And then after you remove Katarina, you try if you want to put another Guardian or something that goes with him. But more importantly, I think what you really want to do is to add one Bruiser. So let's say Set, because it's too early to have Eloy. And then this unit is kind of useless. You have Lux, maybe you can add a Dazzler. So let's say the cheapest Dazzler that's efficient is Bard. If you have TF, you can put TF, it doesn't matter. And then you had items on Vex, so you put the items you had on Vex, you put it on Lux, so something like this. This time you want to have a Jewel Gauntlet because she's not your headliner, so she cannot naturally crit with her spell. Instead you have Zed. And since you play this comp, you're level 8, so I'm still lacking a little bit. So what you can have from here, if you find Lucian, you can have Lucian to activate Jazz, but even though Jazz isn't the best synergy to have for this comp, and that's it. You just play useful units or useful synergies. It doesn't matter. Like for instance, if you have 3 bruisers, or you can have 2 Zed if you find many Zed, it doesn't matter because you're going to sample your Zed since he's your main carry, and that's it. You're going to sample your Zed. I do believe, and this is something I need to try a little bit more, that you don't sample Lux until you have Lux 3 or 3 items on her. So if my Lux was this, even if Zed is my headliner, I would sample Lux, as long as at least 2 stars. If it's one star, of course not. Because one of the main issues when you play Zed is like you're lacking a little bit of damage to reach the backline. So by having sample Lux, Zed will basically throw his shadow, take Lux's form and use Lux ability while the shadow is still attacking normally, you know? So that's kind of improving his DPS basically. Or you can do another thing here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can have 4 bruisers while waiting to have better late game units. That's your level 8. You stay level 8, you slow roll to find obviously Z2, Zac2. You slow roll also to find Lux 3. And that's how you win your game with Lux EDM, but by using AD items as a starter, because this comp is much more flexible than you think. It's not because you don't have Lux headliner that you cannot play this comp, and that's really what I'm trying to explain to you. But at the same time, I understand that this way of playing is a little bit more complex, and I think it requires a little bit more experience with this comp to be able to perform this. So if it's the first time you play this comp, if it is the first time you play set 10, if it's the first time you play this way by being flexible on the early game to late game, I recommend you to follow this game plan with AP start, and if you get a headliner Lux, then you play this comp, and if you're already experienced, then you can try to go with a Z route and just play AD, play your strongbow, rush level 8, and just adapt to whatever you find and use this comp as one of the way you can win your game. So if you want to reach your goal in set 10 or even break your record, I have 2 ways I can help you to achieve that. The first way is to subscribe to my free newsletter I'm going to send every week. It's weekly newsletter. And in this newsletter, I only focus on the 5 comps that you mostly want to play and spam during the week, so you have high chances to win your games by just playing the meta basically. And the second way is to subscribe to my YouTube channel, because it gives you access to my Discord, my private Discord, where here I'm sharing all the comps, all the secrets I know, just like this EDM Lux comp, much before I make videos about it. So this way you can abuse them, you can learn to master them, and you can be ahead of the meta and just be uncontested. Until the next video, see you at the top of the ladder.